Today we are at week 2, module 2 review. This is part of CCSK Study Group, CSA or we have started. On the call as moderator, you have myself, Dr. Monga and Aneel Dadlani. We are not certified CCSK trainers. This is just a study group. We take informal opportunity to talk to you guys who are being part of the study group and just chat with you guys what we have accomplished as module 1, what are you going to talk about module 2. Again, this is part of a CCSK study group that we have started. It's 6 weeks, every Friday, 4 p.m. for 30 minutes. So you can still sign up with a 20% discount. I hope that answered the question about how to still sign up for CCSK. All right. So for those lucky people who got qualified for free training, you must have received an email from me. All right, so as we said, we had week 1, module 1 review last week, Friday. Slides and YouTube is available. Today we are gonna review module 2. Again, review means we're just gonna chat about it. People who have gone through it or going through it, this is a good opportunity to just huddle and talk about it. All right. By the end of 6 weeks, the point is it's not like we're going to push you and put you in front of the examination. You will be ready because you have studied it. At the same time, you don't want to wait too long once you have studied it. So pace yourself, make sure you're ready for certification, and please go for certificate. Once you've gone through the training, the true value or the advantage of the training is certification. So please go for that. All right, so last week we reviewed module 1. The entire module will take you about an hour and a half. If you've gone through it, there were about 6 units in this module, and we talked about, or we reviewed resource pools. We talked about essential characteristics of cloud. We talked about service models. We talked about deployment models, and at the last we did mention and stress on shared responsibility. Let's talk about, we went through so module 2, it's gonna take you guys about 2 hours to 2.5. You don't have to like dedicate it or finish the entire module in one day. But if you do feel like over the weekend or next week, if you have time, that's the estimated time it will take you. You can break it down. You can go through different units. There are 7 units in module 2. You can break it down how you want to do it. So the first thing that you guys are going to see and review is going to be infrastructure as service. So when we talk about cloud, there are different things now. It's not the way we had on-prem, or it's not the physical data center. Now we have to deal with the different components. So the first component that we talked about, resource pools, and how that will look like in cloud. So here we have compute pool. So there are a bunch of physical servers. And then on those physical servers, the next component we talked about, virtualization, which enable us for cloud computing. So that could be an ESXi, that could be a KVM, that could be any other virtualization hypervisor, we call them. And then once we have physical and that virtualization piece taken care of, then we are ready to create those virtual machines. And most of them, they are automated. And they're automated using this kind of controller. Same goes for the other side as well, storage. There's so many types of physical storage these days. I was trying to figure that out and try to put this slide, and I lost track. So what I'm gonna go with is so many physical type of storage, but we don't see that when we are consuming cloud. We don't actually go in and look at the drives, 15K, 7K, or 10K, or SSD. It's there for us to consume because this controller takes care of that. It abstracts us. When we go in and ask for S3, we don't know exactly where that physical drive is actually installed in that one server or multiple servers. That's what makes it storage pool. And these pools are the basic concept in cloud computing. This pool, virtualization, automation, and abstraction, the whole thing makes us enable for cloud. The way we consume these pools from outside world, we either log into UI or API. We access the management plane or management network to access, and that could be whitelisted as well for your organization so that nobody can just go in and start logging in from their home network. That management network connects to these controllers, and that's what its automation piece. That if I need more 10 EC2 instances, how does that's gonna configure that for me? This controller takes care of that using these physical virtualization hypervisor pieces. If I request for storage, this controller piece takes care of that. So these pools are the basic construct. You're going to talk about it, and that's where the shared model concept comes in. So if I am the one consuming cloud as infrastructure as service, I would have to know the security constructs for this hypervisor, also what's going on in my VMs, also the network. So from this layer up, it's my responsibility. If I'm consuming cloud as software as service, I don't know where that software is installed on the virtual machine, what hypervisor they're running, which physical server it's running on. That is all taken care of by the cloud provider. So once again, if I am consuming infrastructure as service, the shared responsibility leans toward me. I am responsible for managing the security for this layer up. If I'm consuming software as service, I don't need to worry about all of these components. That's where cloud providers' responsibility comes in light. The part we're going to talk about is steps to secure cloud infrastructure. So we see this same pattern pretty much in our data center. If if you're going through design and architecture, if you're going through a greenfield deployment, you see this as well. But in cloud, there's a little bit of sequence you have to go through them. If you're consuming infrastructure as service, you have to make sure that you're hardening the host, or if you are the cloud provider, you need to go through these steps. Harden the hosts, then infrastructure, that's where the hypervisor comes in light. Then secure the networks. So we're going to talk about the different types of networks you have in a cloud provider way. Then secure the architecture. So that's where the biggest time is spent, that how does the architecture lays up and who can access which components, which component needs to be connected with what pieces, because keep in mind, everything is automated. So we need to be very careful who or which component can access what other components in that cloud. And the last is management plane, because once all of that is done, now we're gonna start offering that service to our consumers. They're going to consume that using a management plane. So we need to make sure that we have a strong management plane using different type of SSOs. If we need to offer them, we need to make sure that we are also enabling them for SAML. So maybe OpenAuth or any sorts of other SSO mechanisms that we can offer. All right, let's talk about networks. So if you think about cloud as a provider, you would have to basically, you have to maintain 3 different networks. First is the management network. That's where how you're going to manage these components we talked about right here. As you could tell, like this VM needs to talk to controller, that's management network. This compute needs to talk to storage, that's management network.
What is a management plane?
So management plane is this right here. How we are alerting or flagging those controllers what you need, because you don't have access to these hypervisors directly, right? So you would have to go in somewhere and use a network to inform what you want to consume out of a cloud. So for example, if you log into AWS console, you're like, okay, let me have EC2 instance. So that network has to tell that controller that, okay, this consumer or customer would like to have an EC2 instance. That EC2 instance has to run on some sort of VM, which is running on hypervisor, which is running on a physical server. All of this is a management plane right here. You'll also read about metastructure, metadata, what and how it connects in this module. All right, so we talked about management, also referred as management plane. Commonly, you'll hear that from networking guys. The second is storage. We need separate network for storage as well. Then the last is service, how you are actually allowing your EC2 instances or virtual machines that you have in cloud to talk to internet or talk to your other services. So this is known as data plane. A lot of time you'll hear networking guys talking about this as data plane. All right, network visibility, my favorite. So back in the days, we used to have on-prem data center, we have physical servers, and we would just go in and have networking guys configure span or tap, which will be going to a security appliance to do some sort of networking analysis. That used to be typical back in the days. With cloud, now where do I go and configure span? Because I can't configure spans here, because if I'm consuming that as software as service or platform as service, no cloud provider is going to give me span from this. So the challenge is different now. There are ways, there are technologies out there that can help you with it. But again, you have to think about those things differently now. At the end of the day, you want to make sure what is your in-scope traffic you want to capture, you are capturing and analyzing it. Make sure where your shared responsibility lies to capture that traffic. Now we talked about management plane, we talked about network, we talked about storage. Once you have that compute workloads already ready, how you want to manage it, how you want to run it. Like, for example, we used to have different images. We used to have creating different VMs, and they just stay there. You patch those virtual machines, you patch those nodes. But with cloud computing, you can also use CI/CD pipelines to make immutable workloads, where you'll deploy images auto-deploy. So there's a whole sequence that you go through in this module. You learn about it, that how to do these auto-deploys. Also, the biggest security feature that you gain out of this immutable is going to be login disabled. You don't even have to log in because we don't need it anymore. Using automated configuration management softwares, you can actually make sure they are patched, they are properly configured the way you want it, and running those vuln scans before they even get to production, before they even get to final stage. And this is preferred method to consumption of compute workloads. So keep in mind, immutable is the preferred method to consuming the compute workloads from cloud. Now the topic about keys to the kingdom, and I wrote an analogy here, like who has key to your data center and what are the racks inside them? Then who has access to only rack 1, who has access to different racks? So it's kind of the same methodology you have to use in cloud as well. Make sure who has access as a root, who has access to services, who can access or create new EC2 instances, who can actually just use them. So you have to think about it, and you will learn all of that in this module. The one piece I really want to highlight, make sure you're monitoring and auditing. And there are multiple ways to do it, and you'll learn it. Make sure you're actually auditing who's accessing what. So if you have multiple cloud providers, you can actually consolidate the access using some sort of SSO integration so that you always know when a user is trying to connect to, for example, cloud provider 1 to cloud provider 2 to cloud provider 3. That's something you would have to talk about in your architecture. Once again, you don't want to give the keys to the kingdom to everyone because that's going to get out of the hands. And the analogy you want to use is your data center keys are not given to every single employee in your company. So if that's not the case, you want to think about how cloud is being accessed as well.
So to do this automated deployment, that's what this whole slide is saying, right? Everything is automated using the tools you have. And yes. Now the logging disable, is it because those were all from the IAM, right?
Yeah, so this is actually the compute what we are creating as consuming for cloud. So it used to be, you have standard running that we patch every single instance. Then we came up with automation. With Immutable, that you get is using CI/CD pipelines, and login is disabled because you don't need to log into that machine to patch it anymore or install new servers. It has to use CI/CD pipeline, which you will consider using Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Salt, something like that, and run a vuln scan, use inventory tool to inventory when it's a new image is pushed out. So at the end of the day, when the compute is ready, you don't need to have login enabled at that point, you're using that service. For example, it could be your web server, which is running Apache serving on 443. It's already serving over 443. You don't need to log in to do anything else to that.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean,
looking.
like,
Go ahead.
well, I know, I was just gonna say, so like, most use cases would be like, if I wanted to push out an update or like a patch for Microsoft, let's say, you don't necessarily need to do that, you know, manually now. You can enforce it by having Chef, Puppet, any of these configuration management tools
Yep.
push
Yep.
out a patch. And I think what we're talking about here with logins being disabled, it's more of like you're providing an automated way to
Oh, I see.
provide that.
So,
You know, like you don't have to have like an remote desktop session running to
Yep.
log
Got
into the system and patch the system.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the mindset, right? So back in the days, the mindset what we need to patch it. So the way we used to patch it, use a patching software and push it to those nodes. Nowadays, with Immutable, what we are saying is, don't worry about patching that instance. Patch your image that's being using by CI/CD pipeline. Once that patch is ready, just blow that image or existing or running instance and use a new instance. Issue a new instance which is being patched, which is ready with all the scans and world scans, and it's been blessed by all of the processes you have as a security professional. So instead of patching a current, you will just stop using it. It will get, you know, deleted eventually, and you'll issue a new image or new instance. That's what the compute workloads will come in like. Does that make sense? Instead of patching a current one, you'll patch the image and use a new instance.
You know, like not comfortable because I'm thinking about identity access. Like when I saw that login disabled, I was going, well, how am I supposed to be sure the service is even playing? Who, you know, what is the authentication authorization? Making sure all this pipeline, they're really, you know, they're really who they truly are. They can, you know, interacting together. But I get this slide now. It's really the automated way.
Yep.
But I'm thinking there's still a way have to go through the IAM, the identity access management, go through our entire chain to make sure every piece of this service is really should be there, you know. So but I get it now. So thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, like your permissions don't go away, your identity access management doesn't go away. You're just providing a new way to manage.
Yeah.
And
got it.
The biggest difference I want to highlight here is this is login directly to the operating system. What IAM and auditing as AAA is to accessing that application, accessing the database, which is being exposed as a service. So this login is actually to like a root or full administrator. So this is not to the application. What AAA is actually if you pick up any compliance, they want to care how that application is being accessed or the records are being accessed. They don't care about who's accessing the operating system because it's disabled already to begin with. You're only exposing your service. I hope that makes sense and didn't confuse
it makes sense now. It makes sense now. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. So if no further questions, I know we are 7 minutes late before close out. So we have a couple of events coming up. I won't go through them, but if you are interested, please make sure you're subscribed to our social media. And the QR code is on the screen. Please go ahead and make sure you're connected to our LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube for all of these recordings that we record for our events. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Aneel for next week's assignment.